Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive straight into this. Because right now, in the second quarter of 2026, we are literally living through a massive structural shift in humanoid robotics. We're finally crossing that threshold from those viral lab demos you see online to actual physical deployment. But look, if you dig into the data, what's actually happening on the factory floor is completely different from what's popping up in your social media feeds.
To really grasp where we're at today, we got to talk about a number that absolutely stunned the world in April of 2026. 50 minutes and 26 seconds. That is the exact time it took Honor's lightning humanoid robot to win the Beijing E-Town Half Marathon. And when I say win, I mean it beat the standing human world record by nearly 7 minutes. It's wild.
But here's the real kicker, the thing that makes this a true engineering marvel. This wasn't some remote-controlled toy. This robot ran fully autonomously. It was navigating elevation changes, handling unpredictable crowd dynamics, and making real-time pacing decisions for almost an hour. No teleoperation, no one hiding behind a curtain with a joystick, just pure, sustained endurance and serious edge computing.
So, obviously seeing a robot shatter a human world record naturally leads us all to ask, is the humanoid revolution finally here? Are these things ready to take over our homes and workplaces? Well, we need to puncture that hype right now. Look, a marathon course, as impressive as it is basically a smooth, paved road with super clear visual markers. It's a highly structured capability demo. It is not an unpredictable, messy, real-world deployment. A robot that can run a marathon is definitely not necessarily a robot that can fold your laundry without, smashing your dishes.
So to get to the bottom of this, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover hype versus deployment reality, where robots actually work, the global robotics race, the real ROI math, the massive $725 billion AI connection, and finally, 3 scenarios for 2028. We're basically going to separate the viral marketing fluff from the hard economic data.
All right, Section 1. Hype versus deployment reality, our Q2 2026 status check. Right now, there is a deep structural divide between what goes viral and what actually gets mass-produced.
This executive summary brilliantly illustrates who's actually shipping and who's just prototyping. Over in China, Unitree has already shipped over 5,500 humanoids. They're targeting up to 20,000 this year. They are in actual bona fide mass production. Meanwhile, in the West, we're looking at incredible but limited prestige pilots. Figure AI is expanding its pilot at BMW, Tesla is just starting its Optimus Gen 3 production, and 1X is opening pre-orders for consumers. So while 2026 is the target year for Western scale, their currently deployed numbers are realistically still measured in dozens, not thousands.
The absolutely crucial point here is separating what these robots can actually do today from science fiction. The real capabilities? They're here. Bipedal mobility on structured surfaces is mature. We've largely solved the walking problem. Object manipulation in structured spots is also maturing beautifully. Figure 02 is handling sheet metal at BMW within millimeter tolerances. And long-horizon autonomous operation? It's happening, with robots pulling multi-hour shifts on factory floors right now.
But then, we've got the hyped capabilities. Generalist home assistants, we are so far from production on that. Think about it. A home environment with pets running around, stairs, kids leaving toys out, it's wildly unpredictable. And cognitive understanding of social contexts is a huge gap. Identifying a coffee cup on a table is one thing, understanding the social nuance of exactly when it's appropriate to clear that dinner table is completely different. Oh, and mass production at $5,000 to $10,000 consumer price points? Yeah, that simply hasn't happened yet.
Let's move to Section 2, where robots actually work, industrial versus consumer. If our homes are mostly out of the question for now, where does deploying these robots actually make economic sense today?
It really just comes down to this stark night-and-day contrast. Industrial and logistics environments are structured. They're repetitive. The tasks are super well-defined. Think pick and place or sortation in a massive Amazon warehouse. Because of that predictability, companies like Agility and Apptronics have a very clear path to revenue, and the return on investment is highly favorable. On the flip side, home environments are chaotic. They're totally unpredictable. The idea that a consumer is willing to pay 20 grand for a robot with completely unproven household value, that is entirely speculative right now.
Okay, Section 3, the global robotics race, East versus West. What we're seeing in the data is that different regions are playing completely different games to capture this market.
The US strategy is totally defined by prestige pilots. You've got high-quality engineering, premium-tier industrial partners, and companies backed by massive VC funding.
That gives them a really long runway, even with low volumes. Contrast that with the Chinese strategy, which is all about aggressive mass production. With state-supported coordination and sovereign supply chains, companies like Unitree are pushing aggressive price points. We're talking starting as low as $16,000 for their G1 model. It's a high-volume play. And we definitely can't forget Europe's position in this race. While they're operating on a smaller scale compared to the US and China, European firms are carving out this really highly specialized niche. They're focusing on collaborative human-robot environments and safety-critical applications, which integrates perfectly with their strict regulatory and machinery frameworks.
Which brings us to Section 4, the real ROI math, following the money. Look, if you want to know if robots are actually going to replace human jobs, you have to follow the dollars. Does swapping a human for a robot actually pay off today?
First things first, we got to establish the baseline. The fully loaded annual cost of an industrial worker in the US is roughly $60,000 to $120,000. In Europe, it's 50,000 to 100,000 euros, and in China, it sits between $20,000 and $50,000. That is your ceiling. That's the absolute maximum amount of money a humanoid deployment can save a company in a single year.
But wait, the true cost of a robot goes way beyond that initial sticker price. People tend to just fixate on step 1, the capital cost, which ranges from a $16,000 entry tier to well over $100,000 for the premium stuff. But look at step 2, integration labor. You need highly skilled engineers to set up and train the robot to work with your existing systems. That adds a massive $20,000 to $50,000 in overhead per deployment. And then there's step 3, annual energy and maintenance, which runs about 20 to 30% of the capital cost every single year. It adds up fast.
So the bottom line is this. All those headlines you read online claiming a quick 6 to 12-month payback period? Yeah, that's pretty much a myth. Robots don't do 100% of human tasks yet, integration costs scale aggressively, and these early models are going to face rapid obsolescence. The honest, real-world payback math for first-wave deployments right now is closer to 24 to 48 months in industrial settings.
All right, zooming out for Section 5, the $725 billion AI connection, the macro stakes. We have to look at the big picture here. Humanoid robotics isn't just about cool hardware. It is directly tethered to the largest macroeconomic bet in the world right now, artificial intelligence.
$725 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That staggering figure is the projected hyperscaler capital expenditure for AI infrastructure in 2026 alone. The companies building these models are implicitly relying on massive new application categories to generate demand. And guess what? Robotics is one of the very biggest categories on that list.
Honestly, tech investors are sweating right now because of this exact dynamic. If robotics scales up, with millions of units pulling constant inference data from the cloud, that $725 billion investment is totally justified. But if these deployments delay until, say, 2030, the demand for AI inference falls way short, and the financial risk on that massive infrastructure just compounds rapidly. The timelines for AI and robotics are completely locked together.
Finally, Section 6, 3 scenarios for 2028 looking ahead. Based on all of this data, where is the industry actually going to be in 2 years? The source analysis breaks this down into 3 calculated probabilities.
Here's how the probabilities shake out. The bullish scenario, sitting at 25%, suggests mass consumer and industrial production arrives smoothly by 2028. The bearish scenario, at 20%, sees capital cost missing targets and deployments just stalling out. But the base scenario, at 55%, is what's most likely. In this reality, industrial and logistics deployments scale steadily, while consumer and home models get delayed to 2029 or 2030. Basically, that split between industrial reality and consumer hype is only going to harden over the next 2 years. So what's the bottom line for us? What should you take away from all this? If you're an investor, you absolutely must distinguish between flashy marathon demos and actual industrial revenue. If you're working in industrial logistics, you need to be starting multi-vendor pilot deployments right now. And crucially, policymakers need to start preparing immediately for real industrial labor displacement. It's going to hit in 2027 and 2028 as these production volumes finally begin to scale.
I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. The robotics revolution is undeniably underway, but the timeline heavily depends on where you're looking. So ask yourself, are we pacing our expectations to the hard structural reality of integration costs and industrial math? Or are we just pacing them to the absolute peak of the social media hype cycle? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep your eyes on the data.